It has been 24 years since the epic trilogy named The Lord of the Rings was released, and its visual effects still have no opponent to this day. The novel took 12 years to write and 4 years of modification, plus another 4 years to write the script. The film is the accumulation of 20 years and is considered the most expensive Western epic. In order to understand this wonderful trilogy, one must first understand the origin of the One Ring, and without further ado, let us start venture to the Middle-earth. Before the Dark Lord Sauron tore off his fake moral mask, he was a wise man, along with the elves who forged 19 rings for the benefit of the Middle-earth. Among them are 3 pieces created by the elves, 7 rings were given to the dwarf kings, and the remaining 9 rings were given to 9 human kings. These rings are powerful, and those who wear them have used the rings to protect their races. However, they do not know that Sauron, deep in the Mount Doom volcano, has secretly forged a ring that can control all others. Sauron put all his cruel and insatiable ambition to control everything into this ring. Therefore, the peaceful world of Middle-earth gradually became covered in the darkness of Sauron. The elves were the first to realize the conspiracy of Sauron, and they removed their rings. However, the 9 human kings were corrupted by the power of the ring, and finally became the ring-wraiths of Sauron, turned into wraiths with haunted bodies. To fight Sauron, the people and the Elven Alliance launched the decisive battle against Mordor at the foot of Mount Doom. The orc army flooded the hills, and at Elrond's order, the Elven army launched a big attack on the orc flood with arrows. And the Elven army immediately switched to melee mode and began to slash orcs. Just when people are cheering for the upcoming victory, Sauron participated in the battle with the One Ring. The allied forces were helpless against the power of the ring. Even the human king was hammered. Sauron hit and flew him onto the rock. Badly injured right after the collision, Prince Isildur rushed to his father. At the moment of life and death, the prince picked up his father's broken sword and led to cut off Sauron's finger. The One Ring fell to the ground, and the prince realized it. Sauron's body emitted a bright white light and disappeared in a large explosion. In the end, the allied forces defeated the Mordor army. The prince picked up the ring from the ground to prevent all risks in the future. Elrond asked Isildur to bring that ring to the volcano and destroy it. However, when the opportunity came, the prince was tempted by the ring and decided to keep it for himself. On the way home, he was attacked by the Nazgul. In the chaos, Isildur put on the One Ring and immediately became invisible. He took the opportunity to jump into the river and escape from the battlefield. At that moment, the ring had its own ideas. It chose to betray Isildur and abandon him. The prince's body was revealed, and he was shot dead by arrows in the river. The One Ring sinks to the bottom of the river and sleeps for 2,500 years. As time goes by, this history has developed into a legend. Until an accidental meeting, 2 hobbits were fishing on the river, when one of them jumped into the lake and accidentally found the ring. They don't know the origin of the ring, but just at a glance it tempted them deeply. Smeagol, today was his birthday, so he asked his friend to give him the ring as a valuable gift. But the 2 began to scramble for the ring, and Smeagol finally strangled his own friend to death. Smeagol used the invisibility of the ring to return to his home and do many evil deeds. He was kicked out by the people and was forced to flee to the caves of the Misty Mountains, where he survived by eating raw fish. Smeagol has become a non-human creature. Time has made him forget many things, including his own name. Without contact with the outside world, he suffered from madness and often talked alone when holding the ring. When the ring was summoned by Sauron, it decided to leave Smeagol and was found by the hobbit named Bilbo on his adventure. Hobbits mainly rely on cultivation and live on the outskirts of the Shire. They are small in size, have large feet, and enjoy a peaceful life. They do not like to participate in the affairs of the world. Hobbits cannot compare with dwarves about skills or elves about nobility, and they are even inferior to humans. However, they do not ask much in life. As long as they can have a simple meal and sit on the sofa to enjoy the sun in the afternoon, they are satisfied. Because the Hobbit was so simple, the wizard Gandalf chose Bilbo as a member of the adventure team. Although the wizard Gandalf knew that the One Ring was on Bilbo's hand on the way back, he still did not expose Bilbo's well-intentioned lie, because he thinks the ring will be safer with the Hobbit than with any other race. Bilbo returns to the middle of the Shire and holds the ring for 60 years. It is because hobbits are so simple that they have little greed. Therefore, Bilbo is not corrupted by the evil desire of the One Ring. The average life expectancy of a hobbit is 100 years, but Bilbo has lived to 111 years old, and his mental state remains intact. It was clear that the ring gave him energy to live so long. Today is Bilbo's 111th birthday, and old friend Gandalf came from afar to attend his ceremony. However, he was stopped by a group of children on the way because no child could resist his brilliant fireworks. In the evening, Bilbo invited everyone in the village to a party and fireworks that lit the sky. After a few glasses of wine, Bilbo stood on the stage to speak. Few people know that he prepared for this day and planned to quietly wear the One Ring in front of everyone and disappear to start the last journey in his life. "I'm going now, bye-bye." This scene surprised all the people here, and the wizard Gandalf certainly knew that Bilbo used the invisibility function of the ring. He advised Bilbo not to use the ring lightly and asked him to leave it behind. When Bilbo was about to put the ring down, he hesitated and suddenly became very angry. He said words like Gollum, revealing that the ring was manipulating him. The wizard Gandalf used a cry to awaken the lost Bilbo, who felt that something was wrong with the ring. When he regained consciousness, Bilbo decided to let go of the obsession with the ring and entrust everything to his nephew Frodo. He was determined to leave the ring before he left and put his luggage on his way to enjoy his rest. Gandalf did not dare to touch the evil power of the ring, then gave it to the main character Frodo, sealed it in an envelope, and left without saying a word. Gandalf needed to prove whether the ring was really the One Ring, so he went to the library in Minas Tirith to search for information. He finally found a record describing the process of creating the One Ring. According to the record, the One Ring has an anti-counterfeiting function. It will display the text of Mordor when exposed to a flame. Gandalf hurriedly returned and threw the envelope into the fireplace. As he expected, it was the One Ring. He realized that if the ring is not destroyed, the Sauron will still return. Meanwhile, Gollum was captured by the orcs, and the mouth of Sauron interrogated him about the whereabouts of the One Ring. After experiencing brutal torture, finally he revealed that the ring was with a hobbit living in the Shire. Sauron immediately sent Nazgul to the Shire to catch people. News quickly reached the wizard Gandalf. He then urged Frodo to clean up and leave with the ring. He told Frodo to wait for him in a nearby inn, and he searched for the council of the White Wizard Saruman in Isengard. All this conversation is overheard by Sam, who was trimming the garden. To prevent the news from getting out, Gandalf decided to let Sam go with Frodo on this adventure. On this journey, Sam became Frodo's best assistant. Gandalf came to ask the help of the superior Saruman. However, Saruman suddenly betrayed them. Gandalf's face appeared helpless. Not saying any more words, he immediately rushed into a fierce battle. Obviously, the Grey Wizard Gandalf could not match the White Saruman. When Saruman took Gandalf's staff, he had no way to fight back. Saruman used his magic to trap Gandalf on the top of the tower. At that time, Frodo felt the feeling of the Nazgul, dark and dangerous, stamping ahead. The four of them quickly ran to a nearby tree and hid. As expected, a black rider approached them. He felt the presence of the One Ring. Four people are motionless and hold their breath. Frodo was scared. He thought of wearing the ring to flee. Fortunately, Sam stopped him from wearing the ring. Merry distracted a Nazgul by throwing a stone into the trees, allowing the whole group to escape. However, in the evening, the Nazgul continued to chase them non-stop. Finally, the group reached a pier and got on a raft to escape danger. The Nazgul were afraid of the water and did not chase them anymore. That night, the sky thundered, accompanied by a fierce storm. According to the plan of the wizard Gandalf, they went to the neighboring village and made an appointment to see him at an inn. Frodo asked the manager about Gandalf's residence, but he said that he did not see the old man with that description for half a year. Gandalf does not go to the inn as planned, so everyone decided to wait for him. However, a mysterious man in black closely watched from a corner of the room. Frodo felt panic and subconsciously urged him to wear the ring and flee. However, at an important time, Pippin, who drank a lot, accidentally revealed them and Frodo's identity. Frodo ran to Pippin to cover his mouth, but in a hurry he stumbled and accidentally dropped the ring, causing it to slide onto his finger. At the same time, the Black Rider felt the call of the One Ring. Frodo wore the ring and entered the Wraith World. The place where he saw the Eye of Sauron was calling the ring. Frodo felt scared and removed the ring. However, he was immediately grabbed and pulled up by a nearby man. He warned him not to use the ring anymore because the situation was extremely dangerous and he should not wait for the wizard Gandalf any longer. It turned out that he was Aragorn. It was his ancestor who cut off Sauron's finger in the past. Aragorn was the 39th descendant of Prince Isildur and was the only legal heir of the Gondor kingdom because Gondor's last king had no children. Currently, the kingdom Gondor was ruled by the Steward's family, with the Steward holding power. Aragorn lived and hid as a ranger. He hid his identity and real name among the lower classes in Middle-earth. Everyone believes that the royal Gondor bloodline has been completely cut off. Aragorn is a close friend of the Grey Wizard Gandalf and has been deliberately chosen by him to protect the four hobbits. The Nazgul quickly came to the inn, but fortunately, thanks to the help of Aragorn, the four of them escaped the dangerous situation. Aragorn led them towards the Elven territory with the plan to take them to Rivendell, where Lord Elrond could handle it. That night, they decided to stop and rest at a watchtower. While Aragorn went to reconnoiter the area, the three hobbits lit a fire to cook some food. Frodo quickly put out the fire when he realized that it was attracting attention. Because the light had attracted the attention of Nazgul, the whole group quickly drew swords and prepared as the Nazgul approached. Without a way out, they took courage and fought for their lives. Sam was the first person to be knocked unconscious. Next, Pippin and Merry were pulled away. Frodo dropped weapons and stepped back in fear. As the Nazgul approached, he immediately wore the ring and became invisible. He could see the true shape of the Nazgul. But even when invisible, they could still sense him. One of the Nazgul shot Frodo with an arrow. The next day, Aragorn rushed in with a torch and drove off the 5 Nazgul. The weapons of the Nazgul are poisonous, and if not treated promptly, Frodo will become a wraith like them. Aragorn had no choice but to take him to Rivendell to seek Elrond's help. On the way, they met Elrond's daughter. A princess of the elves, Arwen is Aragorn's childhood love. Frodo was too weak for both of them to have intimate time. Arwen decided to bring Frodo to Rivendell to ask her father to treat him. But the pursuit of the Nazgul was still inevitable. On the way, Arwen tried repeatedly to evade the Nazgul in the forest. But no matter how fast her horse ran, they were always in pursuit. The chase lasted throughout the night until they arrived at a river, where the Nazgul finally stopped. It seems that they are afraid of water and hesitated when crossing the river. The elven princess chanted an incantation and created a big flood that engulfed the Nazgul. Frodo was saved by the princess's magic, lying in her arms while Arwen cried because of his wound. Meanwhile, wizard Saruman contacted Lord Sauron through his Palantir and was tasked with building an orc army. They started cutting trees in the forest, using them as fuel for their forges to create weapons and armor. To compensate for being unable to fight during the day, Saruman began to breed hybrids between orcs and goblins. Since then, they have created a new, stronger orc. They are dug from the mud and have to tear a layer of mucus before they emerge. The new orcs are called Uruk-hai, which is an upgrade from their predecessors. They are taller, stronger, and better equipped for the invasion of Middle-earth. Frodo was led to Rivendell by the elves and was saved by Elrond's healing ability. When Frodo woke up, the first one he saw was the wizard Gandalf. He asked Gandalf why he did not see him at the inn, and Gandalf explained that he had trouble. Saruman arrested him and imprisoned him at the top of Orthanc. There, Saruman tried to convince him to join the Dark Lord. But before he was killed, giant eagles from the Misty Mountains rushed in and rescued him to Rivendell. Frodo reunited with his uncle Bilbo. Because there is no influence of the One Ring, Bilbo has aged significantly, and Frodo could see the loss that the ring has caused him. Bilbo was busy writing about his adventures, and Frodo was happy to see him again. When they talked, Frodo was brought to the council to discuss the ring. He was successfully brought to Rivendell, and their tasks had been completed. What to do with the ring was now the concern. Elrond had summoned all races to discuss what to do with the One Ring and how to protect against the upcoming invasion of the army. That is the fate of all people in Middle-earth. Elrond asked Frodo to put the ring on the stone table, and for the first time, people saw the ring. All are fascinated by its magical nature, except Frodo. Boromir, the eldest son of the steward, newly appointed, was the first to step forward and try to take the ring, but Gandalf quickly stopped him with a spell. But Aragorn cut across Boromir's tongue and told him no one but Sauron can control the ring. Boromir was intervened by a ranger and felt humiliated. The elven prince Legolas stood out to protect Aragorn and told him that Aragorn was the only heir of the royal Gondor line and the only legal king. And more reasonably, Boromir should be loyal to Aragorn. King Elrond said it was best to destroy the ring. And before he could finish talking, the dwarf Gimli became extremely angry and couldn't wait any longer. He struck the ring so strongly that his axe turned back. It is clear that weapons cannot destroy the ring. It turned out that the ring was forged in the lava of Mount Doom. It is only possible to send it back to the volcano to destroy it. And the location of the volcano is unfortunately the lair of the Eye of Sauron. Everyone didn't want to go. No one dared to risk death in vain. During the council's debate about the fate of the ring, Frodo stepped in and made a bold decision. He volunteered to accept the mission and destroy the ring himself. Gandalf saw Frodo want to risk his life, and he was the first to support Frodo on this adventure journey, followed by Aragorn, who also volunteered to join the group. Next is Prince Legolas and the dwarf Gimli. And because of the glory of the Gondor kingdom, Boromir also volunteered to participate. And Frodo's 3 companions also volunteered to accompany him. 9 people to escort the ring. And before they left, Bilbo gave Frodo 2 treasures. It was the sword Sting and a mithril shirt. Frodo had just unbuttoned his shirt. Bilbo saw the ring and became extremely excited. He said he still wanted to look closely at it for the last time. Anyway, he has held the ring for the past 60 years. Frodo saw him acting strangely and immediately hurriedly buttoned his shirt. Inside the evening, a large number of orcs gathered. They attacked from all sides. The Fellowship was surrounded by orcs. 9 of them could not resist countless orcs, and the orcs released ear-splitting sounds that made people's spines chill. They warned of a greater danger approaching them. Boromir asked Gandalf what was waiting ahead, and Gandalf held his breath to use his mind to feel the risks ahead. It turned out that they faced a powerful demon called a Balrog. They had to run away before it was too late, so they planned to go to the mines of Moria to evade it. Boromir was the first to come to that hole. Gandalf required Aragorn to lead the crowd across the bridge to escape the Balrog monster. The crowd carefully reached a broken bridge. Legolas agilely did not hesitate to jump to the opposite side when the Balrog's red light was approaching. Gandalf did not hesitate to jump over, but suddenly there were orcs behind shooting arrows at them. Legolas responded with an arrow straight into an orc. Boromir, Merry, and Pippin jumped forward. The bridge began to collapse partly. They could not jump over at this distance anymore. Rocks fell from above, cutting off their retreat, and the bridge began to collapse. The bottom crack is about to break with 2 men standing on it swaying. Aragorn told Frodo to lean forward. Gravity leaned him forward, and he accidentally collided with the opposite stone bridge. Gandalf told the crowd to cross the bridge first, and he stayed behind. To deal with it, the Balrog jumped up to reveal his true shape. And it is covered by flame, burning wherever it goes. Gandalf stood alone in the middle of the bridge. The Balrog advanced. The fire submerged its entire body. With the sword of the ancient kings, Gandalf smashed the fiery blade of the Balrog, but it did not want to back down. The monster roared and continued to attack continuously towards Gandalf. Gandalf broke the stone bridge with his staff, causing the Balrog to fall into the abyss with the broken bridge. Gandalf was about to breathe a sigh of relief when the Balrog's whip caught his leg and pulled him away. Frodo wanted to run to save Gandalf. Gandalf told the Fellowship, "Run, you fools!" Gandalf had fallen. The whole team lost him, but still had to leave to complete the task. And the sadness of the crowd could not be expressed for a long time. But now it's not time to commemorate Gandalf. Aragorn asked Legolas to wake people up to regain their spirit. If they do not move, the orc army will soon catch up. And Aragorn takes on the role of the leader. He leads the group into the territory of Lothlorien, the place where Gimli told Frodo to be wary of a terrible elven enchantress here, and just looking at her would be entrancing. Gimli said that he would not be afraid of her because the dwarf had a strong will. Before he finished speaking, he was stopped by the bow and arrow guardians. After a few negotiations by Aragorn, they were taken to Caras Galadhon. Those who rule this land are the Lady of the Galadriel, Galadriel. Galadriel and her husband came out with their own bright light. Galadriel is the strongest of the elves in Middle-earth. In terms of lineage, Aragorn is Galadriel's distant kin, and she is over 3,000 years old. Everyone who sees her is awed because she can see everything with her mind. Aragorn just looked up. Galadriel knew the expedition lost the wizard Gandalf. When the crowd rested, Boromir found it difficult to sleep, and told Aragorn that when the Elven Queen touched his mind, Galadriel mentioned his father and the upcoming collapse of the Gondor kingdom. But there is still a ray of hope, and he hopes that after completing this dangerous task, Aragorn will be able to return to the Gondor kingdom. But Aragorn did not choose to answer and just smiled a bit. While everyone is fast asleep, Galadriel walks slowly near Frodo. He was awakened and followed her to a stream, the place where she filled water in a bottle and poured it into a basin so Frodo could observe. This basin could see the future and the past. Frodo saw the two brothers Boromir and Faramir, and then Sam, Pippin, and then his homeland. And then suddenly the scene changed to the image of the Shire burned by cruel orcs. They killed their merciless compatriots, and the survivors were forced to be slaves. Suddenly the eye of Sauron appeared before his eyes. The one ring hanging on his chest was about to be drawn towards the water. Frodo used his willpower to regain the ring with one hand. Galadriel used her mind to talk to Frodo and told him that if this time he could not destroy this ring, all of that would happen. She also told him that someone in the expedition was trying to take the One Ring and all the members would be corrupted by it. She asked Frodo to give it to her. Facing the One Ring, Galadriel struggled with the darkness in her heart. After a while stirring her heart, she helplessly returned to her original shape. She said what she could have done, but she decided to stay true to her path. Frodo said that he could not destroy the ring himself, and Galadriel told him that the ring-bearer had to learn how to face loneliness, because she was also the one who bore Nenya, one of them. The 3 elven rings, so she understood Frodo's difficulties. The white wizard Saruman has bred new, strong orcs from mud to compensate for being unable to fight in the sun. And after being loyal to Saruman, the strong orcs put on completely new armor and prepared to go to the battlefield with the goal of catching the 4 hobbits to get the One Ring. On the other hand, each member of the expedition team receives a cloak from Galadriel. They are hand-stitched and possess extremely good hiding effects, along with the lembas bread that can fill the stomach with just a bite. Legolas also received elven arrows. The Pippin brothers received elven brooches. Sam received a rope. The lady asked Gimli what he wanted, and Gimli said he didn't want anything. He just wanted to see the lady's face again because it would make him happy. Finally, Galadriel gave Gimli 3 golden hairs. Frodo received the Phial of Galadriel. It will bring him light on the dark road. And she also decided to remain in Middle-earth for a time. They boarded small boats to travel downstream along a river. The orc army strongly followed the road to the shore. Legolas and Aragorn discovered Uruk-hai monitoring along the riverbank and ordered the group to move forward at a faster speed. They passed the Argonath, the gates of Argonath, the northern border of Gondor. These 2 giant statues are Aragorn's ancestors, and the evidence is that the old kingdom of Gondor was very prosperous. Aragorn and Boromir, also people of Gondor, were overwhelmed by this scene of their ancestors' glory. Going through the gates of Argonath, the whole group prepared to go ashore to gather and rest. Aragorn suggested that instead of continuing along the river, the plan was going through the forest, crossing the swamp, and going straight to Mordor. In the middle of the conversation, he realized that Frodo and Boromir had disappeared. Boromir faced Frodo alone and lost control because he could not resist the temptation. He tried to take advantage of the opportunity to snatch the One Ring, excited to gain its power to protect the kingdom of Gondor. Frodo could not beat him, so he had to wear the ring and flee invisible. Boromir could not find him and fell. When he regained his spirit, he felt guilty about what he had just done. After wearing the One Ring, Frodo stepped into the Wraith world. He once again saw Sauron's terrible eye and felt that he was about to be swallowed by Sauron. He was so scared that he hurriedly removed the ring and fell to the ground. Incidentally, Aragorn found him. Frodo felt he could never trust anyone again because he knew very well that no one could resist the temptation of the ring. But when Aragorn saw the ring in Frodo's hand, he could not control his urge. And when he was about to touch it, Aragorn held Frodo's hand and promised to follow him to the end until the ring was destroyed. Although Frodo was temporarily reassured, he still could not trust the other members of the Fellowship. The sword in Frodo's hands glowed blue, signaling that orcs had arrived. And he told Frodo to run, and he himself stayed to stop them. Aragorn picked up the sword and faced the Uruk-hai army alone. Those who roared and provoked him, but Aragorn was not discouraged. And Gimli and Legolas quickly came to help. At this moment, other Uruk-hai sent troops to search for the ring. Frodo fled under a thin root and was found by Merry and Pippin. Pippin told him to quickly run to them to escape, but Frodo didn't trust them and decided to go alone. For the safety of Frodo, the 2 brothers rushed out to distract the orcs, but soon they were surrounded by enemies. At an important time, Boromir arrived just in time to rescue them. Sound of a horn signaled Boromir is in danger. Legolas and Aragorn quickly ran in that direction. Orcs was blocked by orcs along the way. Boromir called for assistance as he fought. He told the two hobbits to run first while he stopped them. When the leader of the Uruk-hai was slowly moving towards him, he was full of arrows and aimed at Boromir's heart. Instead of falling weakly, he stood up with difficulty and continued to attack again. But they continued to launch another arrow towards Boromir, making him kneel. However, Boromir could not die without fighting for the glory of the Gondor kingdom. He chose a noble sacrifice. Pippin and Merry were captured and taken away by the orcs. Fortunately, the wizard Saruman's orders for the orcs were to capture them, because he did not know which hobbit was holding the ring. Boromir could only watch as his teammates were arrested, and Aragorn hurriedly ran to Boromir. Aragorn comforted him by saying that he fought bravely, promoting the honor and dignity of the Gondor kingdom, and finally confessed everything. He recognized Aragorn as the king of the Gondor kingdom. Aragorn saw Boromir pass away in tears. Frodo looked at the one ring in his hand, sinking in the thought that the ring should not be in his hands. But then he thought of the sacrifice of Gandalf and determined to destroy the one ring. Then he decided to embark on the journey alone. And Sam, simple and honest, hurriedly followed, because he promised Gandalf that he would do anything necessary to follow Frodo. Instead of stopping, Frodo pushed the boat away faster because he did not want to pull Sam into the adventure with him. Sam didn't care much and went straight into deeper water even when he couldn't swim. Sam's body was sinking to the bottom. Along with the sun gradually fading, a small hand, not full of hope, pulled his hand tightly. When boarding the boat, Sam promised to be a loyal companion to Frodo to complete. And Legolas signaled the group to quickly follow Frodo and Sam. But Aragorn said none of them could help Frodo now, and they decided to give up pursuing the ring-bearers. Gimli said that the expedition team had completely failed and asked people to divide luggage and quickly leave. But Aragorn said that the mission was not completed, and all three decided to chase the orcs to rescue the remaining two hobbits. Frodo and Sam stood on the high mountain looking up towards Mordor, and the risks ahead have no other protection, and surely travel is much more difficult than before. Saruman is having a passionate speech before the war. A big battle is about to take place. Immediately under the Tower of Orthanc, a symphony of encouragement stirred up the orcs because they are constantly eager to invade Middle-earth. At the same time, Saruman confirmed an alliance with Sauron through a palantir, and the alliance of the two towers is ready to act. The giant gate of Mordor, weighing thousands of tons, slowly opened while the Mordor army advanced towards the kingdom of Rohan. Meanwhile, another orc army launched across Rohan's border with the task of handing the two captured hobbits to the White Wizard. At the same time, Legolas and others were speeding up to keep up with the orcs. Their goal is to rescue the two hobbits before the orcs arrived at Isengard. The orcs smelled their presence and accelerated. Legolas could not keep up with the orcs. After 3 days and nights running non-stop, the orcs decided to rest overnight in Fangorn Forest. The orcs have not eaten food or drunk for a long time. Hunger broke out crazily, and they supplemented by eating trees. Some, hungry and offered to eat the two hobbits, leading to a sudden outbreak of internal struggles. Pippin and Merry took advantage of the chaos to think of a plan to escape. As soon as an orc was about to rush to them, a spear crashed into an orc from behind. The sound of horse hooves rang from afar. A cavalry regiment moved straight into the ranks of the orcs. They were so brave and well-equipped that they destroyed the orcs immediately. Legolas observed the movements of the Crebain in the sky and suspected that last night had a bloody battle, and deduced the cavalry came to attack them. Aragorn no longer hid and stepped out, calling for stopping. He wanted to ask about the two hobbits. Then suddenly cavalry surrounded them. The cavalry captain asked their purpose when violating the Rohan border. Gimli's gruffness responded with a challenge, but Aragorn intervened to soothe the stress. The captain of the cavalry introduced them as the cavalry of the Rohan kingdom. King Rohan had been under the control of Saruman the White Wizard during the past time and became corrupted. And because of rebelling against Saruman's control, they were expelled and brought to the border of the Rohan kingdom. After that, they told Aragorn that last night they destroyed an orc army and left no survivors. They piled up the bodies of all the orcs and burned them. Before leaving, they lent them 2 horses and then launched. The trio quickly arrived at the battlefield from the previous night to search for clues about the hobbits. They found a hobbit's belt, and sadness tightened their hearts. While Aragorn was blaming himself for not protecting the hobbits, he found their traces on the ground. The clues revealed that they were not dead and broke into the scary Fangorn forest. Pippin and Merry were unaware of the forest dangers. The trees here have existed in this forest for thousands of years, moving and communicating in their language. Soon, Pippin and Merry were captured by the Ents. Because Fangorn Forest is constantly being damaged by the orcs, the spirit of the trees was not sure whether the other two were related to the orcs, so planned to hand them over to Saruman for judgment. Meanwhile, the three of them went into Fangorn's forest to search for the two hobbits. Legolas is sensitive to hearing trees chatting with each other, and danger is gradually approaching them. They held weapons and stood ready. The White Wizard blocked all the attacks of the three without any effort. A stream of light shining straight into their faces, and they couldn't tell if the person in front was friend or foe. The moonlight cleared his eyes slowly, and the crowd finally realized that it was the reappearance of the wizard Gandalf. According to Gandalf, after he and the Balrog fell into the abyss, they participated in a life-and-death battle outside space and time. They fought non-stop. Finally, they climbed the endless steps leading to the highest peak of the Misty Mountains. It was on the mountaintop that Gandalf defeated the Balrog. But he was extremely weak and seemed on the verge of death. However, instead of disappearing, the spirit of Gandalf appeared directly before Eru Ilúvatar. Eru gave Gandalf greater strength and brought him back to Middle-earth to continue his mission. His staff was also renewed. Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli decided to go to Rohan Kingdom to warn them to prepare defenses. After the tiring journey lasting 2 days, they finally arrived. King Theoden was controlled by Saruman the White Wizard into a state of bewilderment and delirium. When Gandalf entered the hall, Grima felt a dark presence. He concealed his identity by wearing a gray cloak. Grima quickly ordered the guards to catch them, but Legolas and Aragorn quickly overwhelmed them. Gandalf gently recites an incantation, trying to break Saruman's hold over him. Suddenly, the king mocked Gandalf, a staff sinking a ship? Gandalf smiled and removed his gray cloak. Gandalf purified Saruman's influence from the king. The pale face of Theoden gradually recovered color. Grima was immediately banished from the Rohan Kingdom. When a big battle is about to take place, the king immediately ordered the mobilization forces to protect the people and instructed people to flee to Helm's Deep for safety. In this fortress, with high stone walls hundreds of meters tall, Rohan's safety has been protected for generations. Gandalf said Aragorn should escort Rohan to Helm's Deep while he gathered the scattered Rohan knights to support. Gandalf and Aragorn agreed to meet at Helm's Deep. The next day, the king, Aragorn, and the people set out with the elderly and children. But the news quickly reached Saruman. He sent his cavalry to ambush the evacuation. The king ordered the elderly and children to move forward so that he and the warriors confronted the enemy. The king's army was flooded by large numbers of orcs. Aragorn fought fiercely. Aragorn killed orcs on their backs but was knocked by their pikes. They ran him over and made him fall from the cliff. After the battle, Legolas stood at the edge of the cliff to search for Aragorn, but he was swept away by the flowing water. They didn't have time anymore. They hastily accelerated to reach Helm's Deep. After many efforts, they finally reached the fortress. A battle between humans and monsters is about to start. Mercenaries from the east crossed the border of Rohan. There were giant Oliphants, very formidable in battle. And the three companions never witnessed such a spectacular military power. But unexpectedly, the mercenaries became victims of an ambush by an unknown group, leading to the death of all mercenaries. The hobbits tried to escape but were taken by the ambushers. It turned out that these ambushers were Ents, who knew about Sauron's plan for a big battle. And as the shepherds of the trees, they felt responsible for protecting Middle-earth. The hobbits told them everything. When he mentioned the death of Boromir, a man became worried. It turned out he was Boromir's younger brother and is the second son of Gondor's steward. His name is Faramir. However, his father most especially loved his eldest son, and Boromir was the heir. Faramir's fate is different from his brother. No matter how hard he tried, he was never recognized by his father, so he always wanted to prove himself. Faramir, when he saw the ring around Frodo's neck, wanted to take the ring and give it to his father, to gain his approval. When he was about to take action, Sam walked over and convinced him. He mentioned the great sacrifice of his brother to protect the hobbits. Faramir was filled with shame when listening to these words and determined to honor his brother's desire by letting them go. Suddenly, Frodo felt the call of the Nazgul, and everyone began to prepare for the coming danger. Frodo suddenly became entranced and slowly stepped out. He was so seduced by the Nazgul that he could not help but want to wear the One Ring. Sam, despite the danger, rushed to prevent Frodo's actions. In a corner, Faramir used his bow and arrow to ward off the Nazgul from the wall. Sam, with teary eyes, thought that they should not take such big risks. But after regaining calm, they continued on the road again. Elsewhere, Aragorn fell into the river and was washed downstream for 3 days and nights. Perhaps the prayers of the elven princess helped Aragorn survive. His loyal horse found and brought him near Helm's Deep. On the way, Aragorn discovered that Saruman's army had marched towards Helm's Deep. He accelerated and hurriedly returned to the fortress. The dwarf Gimli was very happy to learn that his good brother returned safely. The news of Aragorn's return was a great motivation for morale. Aragorn quickly informed King Theoden about the information he collected on the way. He told the king that the orc army would come to Helm's Deep that night and urged him to prepare immediately for the upcoming battle. King Theoden expressed his confidence in the fortress because they had inviolable walls that will never collapse. This stronghold is firm as a rock, easy to defend and difficult to conquer. King Theoden expressed that if property is lost, it can be replanted, and if houses collapse, they can be rebuilt. As long as the walls do not fall, he will fight the flood to the end. Tonight, war is inevitable. The remaining people are equipped with their own weapons. Old men and children are also preparing to participate in the devastating battle. Soon the army came to Helm's Deep. King Theoden wore his combat armor. Obviously, 300 people against 10,000 orcs have no chance to win. Suddenly, the sound of horns rang out. The elves have not forgotten their alliance. A formidable army of 5,000 warriors wearing golden armor arrived to fulfill their commitment. Aragorn was very happy to see his good brothers come to help and approach them. Now they prepared for the appearance of the army. The elven forces gathered on the top of the walls ready to attack. The orcs are only 500 meters from the battlefield. As the enemy approached, tension increased. Suddenly, thunder cracked through the sky, and a rain of arrows discharged a little later. Even those who hid in the tunnel felt the heavy weight of the upcoming battle. Tens of thousands of well-equipped orcs came to the battlefield. With a thunder-like roar from the orc general, the battle began. In the twilight, the elves launched a series of arrows to thin the enemy's lines. The Uruk-hai, well-equipped with crossbows, fired before the people on the wall could react. Orcs quickly lifted ladders to climb the walls. Aragorn ordered his forces to turn to melee mode. Orcs began to puncture the defense by entering the walls. The dwarf Gimli and Legolas competed to see who killed more orcs. The orcs below continued to climb the wall. Orcs used a second front to attack another part of the wall. They set up shields to protect the approach to the gate. Under the shield wall, placed explosives near the drainage system. One orc lit the explosives near the culvert. Even with many arrows through his body, he was determined to cause a violent explosion. The solid wall was blasted to create a large hole. Countless orcs poured through the hole. Aragorn and his army switched to melee. They bravely rushed to hold the breach. Legolas used a shield like a sled and shot arrows. The battle caused heavy losses for both sides. It lasted for a long time. Although both sides were exhausted, they still persisted in fighting. The battering ram constantly attacked the gate, and finally, it was breached. Aragorn and Gimli stealthily prepared for an unexpected attack. The two threw themselves onto the bridge. They then defeated a large wave with their transcendent combat skills to prevent more from entering. On the other side, orcs used ropes to pull ladders up, allowing them to climb the wall. Legolas quickly targeted the ropes accurately. The unbalanced ladder stabbed down onto the orcs below. More and more enemies broke through the wall, and defenders could not stop them. They were forced to withdraw into the inner keep and close the rear gate. Inside, the Rohirrim prepared for the worst. King Theoden did not want the kingdom of Rohan to collapse. He decided to lead one last glorious charge for the kingdom, willing to sacrifice everything for his honor. Gimli blew a horn to signal the attack. The king rode forward, his soldiers followed closely behind. In the moment, all the orcs on the path were knocked to the ground. The wizard wearing the white cloak, Gandalf, arrived with the first rays of dawn. Everyone in the battle seemed to see hope. Gandalf and the Rohirrim cavalry had arrived at the right time to support. With a scream, 5,000 troops moved to fight for Rohan and their king. The orcs immediately turned to face the new enemy. Gandalf led the attack, forgetting his identity as a wizard. He plunged like a warrior into the middle of the enemy without hesitation. On the other hand, Pippin and Merry were brought back by the Ents to Treebeard. Then they saw that the forest, once lush, had been cut down by Saruman. It was their family and old friends for many years. The trees emitted an angry cry for all their fallen kin. The marching forest was like messages exchanged, and they gathered to fight. They intended to make Saruman pay in blood for what he did, and surrounded his stronghold in Isengard. The Ents attacked the orcs with giant rocks from afar. The orcs seemed like ants. Other Ents quickly threw big stones to support. Saruman could only watch from his tower as the Ents came to destroy Isengard. The orcs then used fire to attack, but the Ents on the other side destroyed the dam, causing the water to overflow and submerge Isengard. Treebeard used his tree-like shape to stabilize himself. Saruman could not escape. All of his forges and weapons production were submerged. Back to Isengard, the orcs realized their purpose had failed and decided to withdraw. In the blink of an eye, they ran away like birds fleeing towards the ancient forest. After a series of skirmishes, the orcs were all killed by the elves in the forest. Finally, humanity has won against the darkness. They have protected Middle-earth, but still have to pay dearly after the big battle. The Battle of Helm's Deep ended, but Gandalf knew that the Dark Lord Sauron would not easily give up. He said that the battle to defend Middle-earth was just starting. Frodo and Sam continue the dangerous journey to the top of Mount Doom to fulfill the mission to destroy the One Ring. After the Great War, Gandalf led a group of people coming to Isengard. Saruman was now trapped in his tower. When Saruman saw Gandalf returned as a white wizard, he was angry and launched an attack of fire with his staff. However, today's Gandalf has developed immunity to fire-based attacks. Gandalf retaliated with his mental strength, destroying Saruman's staff. Grima betrayed Saruman. Witnessing the appearance of King Theoden, feeling extremely guilty, and knowing Theoden would not easily forgive him, contrary to expectations. Theoden, a king who loved his people as his biological children, was willing to accept Grima back if he left Saruman. Unfortunately, Grima received a brutal rebuke from Saruman. While people were still negotiating, Grima took a dagger from his back and stabbed Saruman many times. Prince Legolas quickly shot an arrow to stop Saruman's life. He fell from the towering tower and was impaled on a sharp spike, revealing a magic communication device, a palantir, with Lord Sauron. Not under the control of everyone, at night after everyone went to sleep, Pippin's curiosity rose and he took the palantir from Gandalf's care. Pippin wanted to experience the mysteries kept in the Seeing Stone himself. When he touched it to explore, the Eye of Sauron suddenly appeared before him. Immediately, all information was extracted, including the plan to destroy the ring. Aragorn heard the chaos and rushed to prevent it. Gandalf woke up, quickly covering the palantir with his coat. Pippin regained consciousness. Mr. Pippin told Gandalf, "I saw the white tree of Gondor withered, the city of Gondor sinking in flames." Gandalf realized that Sauron's next goal is Minas Tirith, the city of Gondor, which is the core of the defense of Middle-earth. If Gondor collapses, there will be no way to gather all human races. Gandalf proposes that King Eoden send troops to support Gondor immediately, but the king resolutely refused. He took the reason that Gondor lacked support in the Battle of Helm's Deep. Gandalf couldn't argue anymore, so decided to try to bring Pippin with him to the capital Gondor. They need to warn Gondor before Sauron sent their troops so that they could gather allies and be ready
for war. The One Ring was once held by the three hobbit-like beings. Gollum carried it the longest. He used the ring's invisibility to steal around the village. In the end, he was kicked out of the village and hidden in the Misty Mountains, where he had survived for 500 years and gradually turned into a non-human creature, neither hobbit nor orc. After 500 years later, the One Ring betrayed Gollum and abandoned him. Bilbo stumbled upon the ring in an adventure and became its owner. He held the ring for 60 years. And now Frodo is tasked with destroying the ring along with the loyal gardener Sam. However, their journey is not smooth. They encountered many different challenges, including dangerous terrain and severe weather, surviving in the wild. But they do not complain, still showing resilience and determination. On a foggy morning, they risked crossing the mountains. They realized that someone had watched them at night. They pretended to sleep to lure the chaser to reveal himself. Gollum slowly moved towards them. When Gollum tries to get the ring from Frodo, a fierce struggle ensued. Frodo pulled his sword and pointed it at his throat. Gollum recognized the elven blade and feared it. Sam wanted to throw him down the mountain. But Gollum had been bound to serve the owner of the ring. Because of pity, Frodo spared Gollum's life. Gollum had been captured and escaped from Sauron, so he certainly remembered the way to the volcano. So Frodo decided to let Gollum stay to help guide them. Gollum proposed a shortcut through the Dead Marshes, where humans and elves conducted the first war against Sauron. The ruins of those who have fallen still lie scattered throughout the area, while spooky flames continue to burn along the sides of the path. Gollum warned them to be extremely cautious with every step. Suddenly, Frodo was lured by a corpse light, and his entire body fell into the swamp. He saw the souls of the dead wanting to take the One Ring. Fortunately, Gollum pulled Frodo back safely. That night, they heard the tragic cry of Nazgul. Frodo felt that the Nazgul were being attracted to the ring. Sam quickly hid Frodo in a concealed place. Previously, the Nazgul were swept away by the Elven Princess, but they not only did not die, but also evolved into more spectral forms. They walked around above the swamp. Gollum warned that the two of them should not cause any sound. After a long time of searching, they left the swamp. Gollum urged them to continue and reach the Mordor border that night. After a hard journey, they finally saw Mordor's Black Gate. Mordor's horns rang moistly, and the gate is gradually being opened by two giants. Orcs are gathering to march towards Gondor. Suddenly, a loose stone under Sam's feet fell. Frodo rushed to rescue Sam. The fallen dust was noticed by nearby mercenaries. When mercenaries came to observe, Frodo quickly hid them with his elven cloak, escaping in time. Gollum proposed an alternative path that could go around Mordor and lead them straight to the mountain. However, this road is full of dangers. Even so, Frodo decided to trust Gollum. Sam insulted Gollum on the way, and Frodo felt uncomfortable, believing that Sam should not treat their guide like that. Sam warned Frodo that Gollum could turn against them at any time. Gollum, reduced in size but still named and sharp, also felt the cracking in their relationship and planned to spread discord between them so Sam would leave the journey. Then he could regain the ring. Gollum brought food only to Frodo, making Frodo feel that Sam was an excess presence. Gollum led Frodo and Sam towards Sauron's tower in Mordor. The atmosphere around it was strange and scary. And to reach Mount Doom, they have to enter Mordor. Gollum decided to guide them around Minas Morgul and go up a steep staircase, a secret path leading into Mordor to avoid detection. Suddenly, the call of Sauron made Frodo unable to control himself, moving towards the main gate. Fortunately, Sam and Gollum pulled him back in time. The ground began to shake, and a green light shot from Barad-dûr. It could also be seen even by Gollum in the distance. There were no other options besides hiding behind rocks and evaluating the situation. The Lord of the Nazgul, standing on a fell beast above the gate, emitted a chill of discomfort. Along with the roar, armies poured out from the Black Gate. These armies not only include orcs but also mercenaries who have submitted to Sauron. Middle-earth is on the verge of destruction. War is inevitable. They had to get to Mount Doom and destroy the ring before the war began. This secret staircase is actually part of Gollum's plan. His ultimate goal is to regain the ring from Frodo. But Sam is still very vigilant during their journey. On the way, there was a soft whisper in Frodo's ear, telling him that Sam was trying to steal the ring. When Sam slept, Gollum crushed the remaining waybread and scattered it on Sam, then threw the rest down the cliff. When they woke up, Gollum accused Sam of eating all the reserves. At this time, Sam guessed that it was Gollum causing trouble. Sam hit Gollum on the ground and beat him. His purpose is to continue creating discord between Frodo and Sam. Frodo, deceived and pressured by the One Ring, pushed Sam away in rage. Sam left the expedition with tears. Sam realized that it was Gollum's trick. Despite being angry, Sam could not let his best friend be threatened. Sam immediately turned around and chased Frodo. Gollum led Frodo to a dark and deep cave at the top of the pass. And here, Gollum's true intention was revealed. He left Frodo alone in the cave and hid nearby. He led Frodo into a trap. A large spider, Shelob, rushed toward him with a bloody mouth. After a while being chased, Frodo was entangled in the spiderweb and could not move. Gollum cackled and laughed in front of him. At the important time, Frodo cut the web with his knife to free himself.
Gollum took the chance to rush forward to rob the One Ring, but Frodo pushed him into the cave. With the exit blocked, the giant spider slowly approached Frodo and stung him from behind with a sharp stinger, making him collapse. The spider then wrapped him in its web. With Sauron's armies marching out of the Black Gate, the invasion of Middle-earth seemed a foregone conclusion. A bright green light shot up from the Dark Tower, obscuring the sky. Gandalf, who noticed that scene from afar, immediately rode a white horse to the capital Gondor to inform the steward to prepare for war. This great and majestic white city is named Minas Tirith, built on cliffs with huge white rocks. Gandalf went up the levels of the citadel until reaching the top. Outside the Gondor Palace, there is a white tree that has not bloomed for over 1,000 years since the king's death. Inside the palace, the steward Denethor is sitting on the throne, grieving at the death of his eldest son Boromir. Despite Gandalf's warning that war is imminent, he still did not respond, even angrily retorting that Gandalf only came for the benefit of Aragorn, Gondor's heir, and he will not give up his power. Gandalf was disappointed and had no choice but to withdraw. Outside, a dark cloud covered the sky. That is the result of the dense smoke that the forces of Sauron released from their forges because their orcs fear sunlight. So Sauron obscured the sun to create favorable conditions for the operation. When the dark clouds extended to Gondor, it signaled the great battle had begun. There was no time to waste. Gandalf immediately sent Pippin to sneak up to a tall tower and light a beacon to call for aid. The first beacon burst into moist fire. Realizing this, the guards at other peaks in turn lit their beacons to convey the support message. The light spread to the Rohan kingdom. Aragorn witnessed this scene and quickly ran to the hall to report to King Rohan. Upon hearing the news, King Theoden hesitated for a few seconds, but then immediately ordered the mobilization of his entire army to go towards Gondor, with the order to reach the capital within 3 days. Meanwhile, Faramir was stationed on Gondor's border to protect an important fortress, Osgiliath. The opposite shore seemed unusually quiet, which showed that the orc army was silently approaching. As expected, under cover of darkness, the orc army advanced at night. A guard paid attention to them, but was shot dead by an arrow before sounding an alarm. Everyone heard the disturbance and immediately moved to prepare defenses. The orc army began to land boats one by one. Faramir actively confronted the orc floods. If the fortress fell, Minas Tirith would be the next target, so they had to hold the line and wait for reinforcements. However, the enemy army was beyond Faramir's expectations. The battle took place all night and was not successfully defended. Faramir made the decision to abandon the fortress and ordered everyone to withdraw to Minas Tirith before escaping. They were ambushed by many Nazgul. Most of the soldiers were slain by Nazgul on the way. White Wizard Gandalf rode his white horse and used his staff to fight against the siege of the Nazgul. The soldiers quickly opened the city gate to allow the retreating people to return to a safe place. Faramir did not receive any comfort from his father when he reported that the fortress had fallen. The old man was furious. Faramir should have died heroically on the battlefield instead of retreating to the city. He was filled with sadness in a desperate effort. To gain the approval of his father, Faramir decided to ride back towards the enemy lines with his remaining knights to retake the lost fortress. Everyone knew that almost no one could survive. Over 100 knights charged towards the enemy, but even before they engaged, many were killed by a volley of orc arrows. Thousands of orcs marched to the gates of Minas Tirith. This time they are well equipped and many siege ladders are carried. Minas Tirith, Gondor's white city, is built on cliffs, the most formidable fortress of men. The battle began by the orcs launching large stones. People also responded with their own weapons. In the initial exchange, neither gained the advantage. However, the orc flood had sent siege towers rolling forward to suddenly attack the walls. They quickly destroyed some defenses on the city. At the same time, the guardians on the wall were also attacked. Taking advantage of the defenders' confusion, the orc flood brought heavy siege engines to the base of the wall. Surrounding ladders brought a large number of orcs onto the wall. Even a wave of orcs with a battering ram approached the city gate. But of course, the gates would not be easily breached by the enemy. The orcs operating the ram were quickly shot dead by the archers on the wall. The leader of the orcs saw this. He immediately called to stop and change the plan. They brought a giant ram Grond to the battlefield, the weapon of the orc flood. All the orc floods were raised and cheered. Giant trolls pulled the ropes. They began to hit the gate. The gate being breached is only a matter of time. The battle moved from sunset to night. The last gates were breached by the orcs. The defenders began to lose heart. The orc core spilled like water into the city, and people had no choice but to withdraw level by level. Gandalf held his staff and joined the battle. They fought fiercely.
All night, casualties mounted throughout the city. However, no soldier wavered. As long as they still breathed, they were determined to protect their families and city. Gandalf and Pippin are confronted on the wall by the Lord of the Nazgul. He spoke of breaking Gandalf's staff. At the important time, horns sounded far away, signaling the appearance of the reinforcement troops. The Nazgul quickly changed direction and flew towards the front line. The king of Rohan's army, the cavalry, had come to the battlefield. King Theoden stared into the overwhelming force besieging the city. The orcs were so thick that all cavalry were scared before they entered the battlefield. After the speech of King Theoden, Rohan's cavalry flooded into the fierce enemies. Strong attacks drew blood. The knights of Rohan fought heroically, thinning the number of orcs and turning the tide of the battle, pouring the orcs into a desperate situation. Suddenly, at that moment, the ground shook, and mercenaries from Harad, riding Mumakil, participated in the battle. Faced with this new enemy, Rohan's warriors were still not discouraged. However, humans are like ants before the enormous Oliphants, easily swept away by their giant tusks. The Mumakil trampled warriors. Rohan's experienced generals quickly identified weaknesses. The Mumakil began to collapse and were brought down. Suddenly, the Lord of the Nazgul, riding his beast, rushed down and carried the king away from his horse, killing him. A heroic generation fell. A brave young soldier walked forward, determined to protect the king. The Witch King smashed the soldier's shield. He approached to finish her. Mary stabbed the Witch King from behind, wounding him and breaking his spell. The female warrior, Eowyn, took off her helmet and gave him a thrust through his unseen face, making his body dissolve. The tide of battle had now turned. The orcs were forced back towards the river, and in the end their doom came. Suddenly, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli jumped off their boats from the river. Aragorn held the reforged sword Andúril. He commanded an army of rangers and the dead men of Dunharrow. The immortal ghosts are invulnerable. Very quickly, Aragorn had gained the head of the orc leader. Legolas removed Mumakil drivers with his agility easily. In a short time, he dispatched the driver and gracefully landed on the ground along the trunk of the Mumak. When the dark cloud slowly disappeared, it signaled a comprehensive victory in the defense. However, this victory also cost countless lives. After the war ended, Aragorn fulfilled his promise and released the army of the dead from their oath. They flew up with the breeze to find peace. On Frodo's side, when the spider is about to take Frodo, Sam came to rescue Frodo. Sam bravely fought the giant spider. A small hobbit facing a giant enemy. Despite his fear inside, Sam never gave up. It is the deep friendship between the two. Sam's relentless spirit finally drove the spider away. After tearing the sticky web from Frodo, suddenly the sword's sting on the ground emitted a blue light. A group of orcs came to the cave to investigate. They discovered the body lying face down and mistakenly thought Frodo was only unconscious from poison. This gave Sam a glimmer of hope. To make sure the meat has a delicious taste, or for interrogation, the orcs bring Frodo to the tower at Cirith Ungol. Sam followed them into the tower without any obstacles. Frodo woke up and realized that the ring was taken away. Two orcs fought over Frodo's mithril shirt. Sam took the opportunity to find the cell. He encountered 3 orcs and defeated them. After many efforts, he reached Frodo. Frodo immediately apologized to him for everything. Sam calmed down and took the ring from his pocket. Frodo asked him to return the ring. Sam hesitated for a few seconds and seemed tempted by that ring, but Sam soon overcame the temptation and returned the ring to Frodo. They wore the armor of the orcs and escaped the tower. And with the eye of Sauron watching every corner of Mordor, entering Mordor would be extremely difficult. The two of them skillfully disguised themselves among the orc ranks in the hopes of passing through Mordor without notice. They were dragged along the march. The leader of their escort team was preparing to check the group. To avoid being detected, Sam and Frodo organized a fight to create chaos between the orcs. Seizing the opportunity in the chaos, they left the army. The victory in Gondor had been won, but Frodo and Sam were still in grave danger. After careful and unanimous consideration, the leaders decided to create a distraction to attract Mordor's attention to help Frodo and Sam have more time to get closer to the mountain. Aragorn used the Palantir to set up contact with Lord Sauron and used the sword Andúril to challenge Sauron. He claimed he was Aragorn, the 39th descendant of Isildur, and officially declared war against Sauron. They quickly assembled a small army and gathered at the Black Gate of Mordor. Mordor sent a leader to negotiate. They even showed them Frodo's mithril shirt as evidence that they had caught him. Aragorn did not believe their lies. When Mordor's gates slowly opened, a horde of 100,000 orcs overflowed. 5,000 Rohan knights were surrounded by orcs. Aragorn stepped forward to gather and inspire the army with a speech before the battle. More and more orcs joined the battlefield. Aragorn looked back at his teammates and uttered the sentence, "For Frodo." With his sword held high, all rushed him to the ranks of enemies. This decisive battle was not only for Frodo, but also for the peace of Middle-earth. The Nazgûl far away also came to attack from the air. Gandalf responded by starting to recite an incantation and summoning the giant eagles from the Misty Mountains. Immediately, the eagles warded off all the flying monsters, forcing them to return to Mordor. The orcs even sent
trolls to join the battlefield. It was a battle that seemed to have no chance of winning, but the soldiers were willing to sacrifice their lives if that meant winning even a moment for Frodo and Sam. Their courageous efforts created a distraction, allowing Frodo and Sam to escape Sauron's vigilance. The entrance to Mount Doom was only one step left, but their bodies could no longer stand the heat of the volcano. Frodo was completely exhausted and weakened. Sam carried Frodo with tears. Sam used his tired body to carry Frodo on his shoulder. However, when they approached the entrance, Gollum, who craved the One Ring, suddenly attacked from behind. He strangled Frodo and began to take the ring. Sam attacked Gollum with a rock to free Frodo. After that, they were entangled and rolled down the steep slope. Gollum bit Sam's shoulder with sharp teeth. Frodo took advantage of this moment and walked alone into the entrance of Mount Doom. Sam followed behind, shouting to urgently throw the One Ring. As long as that ring is thrown into the LOTR, every crisis in Middle-earth could be exchanged for peace. But when Frodo's body and consciousness could not resist the temptation of the ring, Frodo put the ring on and disappeared before Sam's eyes. Gollum also came and knocked Sam unconscious. He went to follow Frodo's footsteps and jumped on him. He tried to win the One Ring until Frodo's finger was bitten off by Gollum. He finally regained the One Ring and celebrated with joy. Frodo rushed forward to take the ring. Both struggled and fell towards the edge of the chasm. Gollum hugged the ring tightly and fell into the hot lava. The One Ring was completely destroyed. Fortunately, Frodo clung to a rock at the edge of the cliff, and Sam, awakened, hurriedly pulled him back to the shore safely. Meanwhile, the Eye of Sauron collapsed with a jarring implosion. Witnessing this scene, everyone knew that Frodo was successful. When Sauron's power fell, Mordor began to collapse. The army scattered in panic. Frodo and Sam escaped the volcano that was erupting in lava. It seemed that they had no way out. Gandalf rode on a giant eagle to the volcano to rescue them. 2 people were taken to Rivendell to restore health. Aragorn returned to Gondor and ascended the throne. He was crowned king, restoring the power of mankind. The white tree, not fruitful for over 1,000 years, suddenly bloomed, implying that the kingdom would become prosperous. And this scene has also concluded all 3 parts of The Lord of the Rings. What do you think about this trilogy? Leave your opinion below so I know. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Bye!